This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
Well, look at this, boys and girls. Welcome on in to New England Soccer Weekly, the first ever show within our live studio. And you know what? Good vibes only right now.
Yeah.
You're coming off a very
Great
nice win
vibes.
in Charlotte last weekend. You're going into a home opener where I think you're the favorite. I think you should be the favorite.
I would hope so.
And you got Gustavo Bo back. It's all good vibes.
And the
New
weather's
England.
in your favor, too,
No,
up
it's
here.
not.
Oh, it's not.
Well, it will be by the time kickoff it happens.
Yeah.
I believe.
Well,
Because
I guess
it's
when you got playing against a Houston team that's used to be playing
That's
in
my
like
point.
150 degrees in the summer,
Yeah.
and they come up to 30 degrees, I guess it's not that good.
And we also started our first show here with the setup with our friend over here from TV.
Yes,
Giving
Apple
us
TV's,
a great compliment. So why don't we introduce our guest here today?
Apple TV's Calen Carr, longtime MLS player for the Houston Dynamo, also a longtime commentator on all things footy in America. Calen, welcome to Providence. Welcome on the New
Guys.
England Soccer Weekly. How are you?
Awesome to be here. Love the new setup. Love the show. I saw you guys had Lloyd on last week. I was listening to that. Tough act to follow because Lloyd is full of personality, but I'm going to do my best.
Make sure you also check out the Movement podcast on Apple TV as well. Make sure you're supporting everything that Calen's doing there. And just get your first, to begin here, your general thoughts on the whole new Apple TV deal and being part of this whole new thing last week. How was week one for you?
It was fun. It was exciting. I mean, the preseason, even going back to my playing days, is too long. And I think even in this case, kind of as a commentator, the preparation for it, I was just ready to kick things off, see this first tackle, get the first match, the first goal call, all that. And I got to do it in Cincinnati last week at their stadium, TQL. I hadn't been there before. Incredible atmosphere, over 25,000 there. We saw across the league. I know the New England match had, I think, over 60,000 in Charlotte. So just the excitement around the league right now and to get to be a part of this historic next step is really cool.
We talked with Lloyd about this last week, but how did this partnership with Apple come about with you specifically, and how'd you find out that you got the gig?
Yeah, I heard Lloyd going through that, and I was interested to hear his story because I think everybody's is a little different. I've been in and around MLS for a long time and was always hoping for an opportunity or a chance here. And I guess my number got called. I got a good conversation. I felt pretty good about everything, but you just never know because there's so many talented broadcasters and people out there covering the game. And so I think for me, more than anything, I'm just feeling really thankful that they put their trust in me and have put an opportunity in front of me. And I just think of back to my playing career, saying, okay, well, how do I make the most of this? And that's what I'm trying to do right now.
What do you think about the stadiums? Because you brought it up briefly about how you saw full stadiums across the league during the weekend. I mean, that's the biggest thing that stuck out to me. If you're just taking yourself out of it, you had a lot of great games that happened as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that throughout the show. But what stood out to me is that this is the first time I ever feel like in MLS history that every home opener stadium, every stadium during the home opener last weekend was full.
It was
Austin,
lit.
It was lit. As the
lit.
millennials
It's a
say.
good turn, yeah.
Miami, full. Seattle, out of all the stadiums, Seattle was the most disappointing, I thought, because usually they bring, the most fans. And
It's a good sign.
Atlanta, Charlotte.
If Seattle is somewhere not at the very top, that means you're doing well. That's a good.
For sure.
It was cool. I mean, even when I came to MLS, there were only 12 teams, and my first MLS game was, this is gonna date myself here, was FC Dallas, their home opener, first game ever. And I remember watching it. It was on playing, and I was on ABC, and it was such a cool experience to see. From there on, I got to open a stadium when I played in Chicago, out in the suburbs. Now they've moved back downtown. When I got traded to Houston, we opened a brand new stadium there in East Downtown. And it's just kind of been one after the next. But for me, there's still a number of stadiums I haven't been to. I haven't been to the new Nashville Stadium. I haven't been to the new Columbus Stadium. I haven't been to Miami ever. So I just to be Cincinnati for me was the first time as well. So to kind of see more of that happening is still really cool to see.
Yeah, and some of these smaller markets that are coming into the league, like you said, when you started, it was 12 teams. Now we're approaching 30. It's just insane. But what is that atmosphere like going to Cincinnati? I mean, that must have been just crazy. I've just from the visuals alone, it was nuts on TV.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. I went and saw them play a game in the USL, before they came to MLS. And it was a Wednesday night. It was raining and they had 20,000 people there. And I was like, wow, all right. Like if this team gets an MLS club, that's going to take it to the next level. And, they have a really cool supporter culture there. A lot of bars right around the stadium. They do this march to the match that I saw a bunch of people pouring into. Credit to Houston. They brought some fans as well up into the corner to check it out for opening day. So, just that kind of supporter culture thing, to see it around the country. Of course, respect to the OGs, like everyone here in New England and, a lot of the other clubs across Major League Soccer. But I feel like it has been injected with some new life with these new teams. Another big one this weekend was St. Louis getting their first home game, what that's going to be like in a city that has so much soccer history. So there's feels like every week there's a new story to follow. But yeah, a big part of it, I think, comes down to that supporter culture and the support around the games.
Well, you mentioned coming into the league and calling the game this weekend with the New England Revolution. There is a tie in there. So do you remember this back on June 11th, way back then?
June 11th? Sorry, remind me one more time. The actual dates, I'm now wondering.
So June 11th, it says you scored your first professional goal against the New England Revolution.
Yeah. In Chicago. It was actually on the first day we played in the new stadium in Bridgeview for the Fire. And yeah, I remember, I think it was against Matt Reese, who is an absolute legend.
For the Revs.
Yeah. So, to be able to score a goal against the Revs was amazing. But then right after I finished celebrating, they came back down the other way and Steve Ralston scored a goal to tie things up. So my celebrations were a little bit short-lived, but those Revs teams were incredible to play against back in the day.
Let's go back to that game last weekend against Cincinnati. 2-1, the final score. Cincinnati gets the win over the Houston Dynamo. When I went back and I watched the highlights of the game, and I think you would agree with this, Nick, everybody's still trying to figure themselves out. When Houston had the ball and they were in the final third, they were dangerous. But there were times when the defense had to bring the ball out of the back. They were also dangerous against themselves, turning the ball over. So, what was your sort of observations watching this Houston team last week on the road in a hot environment like Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The passage of play for them in the middle of the field was very good. They had 60% of possession. Hector Herrera, I think, was a standout. We saw the best of him. Tons of expectations, especially for a club that has been kind of mired at the bottom, to make a big signing like that in Houston, no less, with his background as a Mexican international. That's going to have a huge impact. But yeah, as they moved the ball forward into the final third, weren't able to really create a ton of really good looks. Set pieces, they were very dangerous. Herrera's service in the box was fantastic. They get the goal right before halftime on that. But yeah, they were almost their own worst enemy building out of the back. Gave away some easy chances that really could have put them in a big hole against a team like Cincinnati that maybe on opening day wasn't at their sharpest, especially in the final third, but you would expect them to put some more of those away. So I think they'll probably be a little more pragmatic against New England, not wanting to give away too many easy opportunities. But that midfield, I think, was the strength for Houston.
Yeah, you always want to win your first game, but you both mentioned it where Houston outshot on goal as well. Possession was all in their favor. The final score wasn't, but there were things out of game one, especially offensively, that you can build on into game two against the Revs.
Yeah, I think they'll take some confidence, but it's still a team that's trying to find itself. New coach, I think 13 new players, trying to figure out what their best formation is. We'll see if they kind of run it back with the same lineup or if they try to make some changes heading into tomorrow. So, yeah, I think this Houston team under Ben Olsen, the one thing you got to know about them, and it's going to take on the personality of Ben, is just he's a fighter. He's a guy I've played against. He's a tough competitor, and I think he's trying to reinstill a little bit of a winning culture back into a team that was known for a long time as being one of the toughest teams to play against in Major League Soccer. But I don't think a team that many clubs would fear, whether at home or on the road, and I think he's trying to reestablish a little bit of that.
Yeah, go into that a little bit more about Ben Olsen's background. For years with DC United, they've had a lot of good teams out there.
Got background with Bruce, too.
Got background with Bruce. He lived with Bruce.
There we go.
So Bruce knows him very well.
Roommates.
So roommates. Being roommates with Bruce, I can only imagine what that's like.
What the?
You don't
Probably
know?
a lot of good cooking.
You don't know?
No, I don't know.
We're on camera now. You can't lie.
I understand that. People can see me
good
now.
cooking. Why would you assume they'd be good cooking?
That is true.
He's Italian.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
That is true. I'll take
Fair
that.
enough.
Shout out.
Fair enough.
Shout out to the Italians.
But Ben Olsen teams, what are the normal characteristics of Ben Olsen teams in the past, and does that reflect, especially with DC United, does that reflect what you're seeing here in Houston?
I think the character part does reflect a Ben Olsen team where you were just able to see them fighting. Even towards the end, they were scrapping, trying to get a goal. Celentano made a couple of big saves late in the match to preserve the win for Cincy. But I think he's been able to do a lot with a little at times. I think those DC teams, he didn't always have the biggest resources or roster spend or big stars. The one time you did see that was when they brought in Wayne Rooney and they paired him with Lucho Acosta. And I think at that point is when you could start to see, if you give Ben an actual, better quality players and some top quality players, he can get the best out of them. And I think you can see that a little bit with Herrera, who's a nice piece. I think they still need to probably add some more pieces around him, and that will probably happen over time. So I think that this Ben team is a little bit different, though, than I was expecting, because a lot more of like a 4-3-3 is a little different than we've seen in the past from him. And then also I think the possession numbers, really using the ball more than we've seen Houston use in the past as far as trying to hit more on transition.
So let's move to the other sideline. The Revolution coming off a 1-0 victory. Henry Kessler, a late goal in the 89th minute. 1-0 going into Game 2 home opener. What have you seen from film this week that you like and maybe don't like about this team early on?
Well, it's tough because going to Charlotte, I think, is a really tough environment. Of course, there was a lot of emotion on the day as well, with Anton Walkes being remembered, and that really happened across the league, and was hugely impactful to all of us in the MLS community. But the environment of that game, a difficult place to play, a Charlotte team that likes to play a little bit scrappy at times. It was tough to get a lot of rhythm in the attack. Carlos Hill was searching for the ball, but didn't get enough of it, I think, if you were watching it back. But that said, I think the way that this Revs team kept fighting and was able to kind of find a goal, you saw a couple of young players emerge. I just think some of those young guys, the homegrown players that Bruce is giving a chance, are really, really looking good. Noel Buck probably being the one that stands out the most. And then Kessler just kind of takes a chance, and he took it quite well. I talked to him yesterday. I was like, hey, were you upset not to get a brace? Because he had one off the post as well. And he's like, yeah, I wanted 2 goals in that one. So I kind of like that attitude. And I think for the Revs teams, when we've seen them at their best, they tend to get late goals. I think it's a pretty good indicator to see how this team's character is. And I think to start with a win on the road like that will give them a lot of energy.
And I think the Supporter Shield year, you mentioned it right there, a lot of scrappiness, was a lot of late goals. They were never counted out of any game. There was come from behinds, and they played 90-plus minutes. Last year, you just didn't see it. I know, obviously, it's been one game, but as a veteran team now with just a few younger guys, how do you think they respond going forward with a roster that they have, which, on paper is very talented? How do you think they respond going forward the rest of 23?
Well, I think they'll be looking for a big bounce back. I think last year was a little bit of, you kind of throw that one away. It was a strange year where you lost so many key important players who you're almost a victim of your own success in Major League Soccer. It's so hard to hold on to your top players where you see a guy like Tejan Buchanan emerge, and then suddenly the offers start rolling in, and he's playing in Europe and playing in the World Cup. And that's just a part of things now in this new MLS, where I think back when I played, it was a little more of, you could kind of hold on to a core of a team, especially your star players, for a while. If you were to hold on to a piece, Carlos Hill would probably be the one I would pick, because he just is such an influential player. I can't imagine for Revs fans getting to tune in every week and know that he's the one who's going to be pulling the strings. Pretty awesome. But I think they'll be, clearly expecting to be back in the playoffs, potentially fighting for a home game, I think, in that top half of things. I'm never going to bet against Bruce Arena. I just have learned the hard way, losing 2 MLS Cup finals to him. So he's not a guy that's going to miss the playoffs. He knows how to get the best out of this group, and I think this is trending towards a big bounce back year for the Revs.
I know it is very exciting to watch Carlos Hill. I think we've all enjoyed watching Carlos over the years here. But here's my problem, Calen.
Boy, here we go.
No, this is when it goes off the rails. All right, go ahead.
We were good for a while.
We were doing great.
It felt like Saturday night, Carlos kept on looking for the ref to call the foul. not necessarily trying to finish the play, not necessarily trying to be more aggressive. It felt like he was going down easy the other night. I didn't love what I saw from him. Like his attitude, like, yeah, when Carlos gets on the ball, he's going to make a nice play 9 times out of 10. I think that's indisputable. But I do think sometimes, and I think people overlook it because he's Carlos and he makes all the nice plays so you can look past it. MVP. But it feels like he's always looking to complain to the ref and always looking to.
This is what happens on the show. So let me ask you this: you look at you look at the other big players, the MVP type players in every other league. LeBron James.
I'm talking about him.
But
we're not comparing sports.
No, but I am, because they do the same thing. This is what happens when you get to that type of level. I'm not saying you're wrong, but this is what happens.
It's just a continuation of what he did last year. Like you go back to actually this week last year when the Revs end up losing the game against RSL. And the first thing he's doing is cursing on TV after the game. Yeah, I read it. Listen, guys play with emotion. It's great, fine, cool, whatever. But I think it just becomes apparent, Calen. I don't know if you saw it when you were watching back the game last week, when it seems like every single time you get a little bit of a hit, you're looking for the referee to call the foul. It's MLS. You're not. It's not.
He also gets hit the most in the league.
In the league, you're a stat guy. That's what the stat is.
Stat is. He gets hit a lot. What's your take on that, Calen?
Yeah, I never got kicked that much, so I can't imagine what I would do if I had to take the punishment that Carlos gets. I think the one thing I would say that I'm watching more is how he reacts and responds to his teammates, because I think he's still trying to figure out a little bit of how he gets on the same page with a couple of the guys. Barrero, ton of talent. Can these guys connect a little bit more? There was the one pass where he was trying to square it to Barrero, and Ferroni didn't see him and kind of takes the ball off him. So I would look a little bit more towards that than the sort of hatred or giving a little
reactions.
The reactions towards the ref, because that's just a part of things. The one thing I am watching though tomorrow, you guys mentioned that snow game last year where I watched on Apple TV the other day where his post game interview. I watched that back where he just kind of went off, and then Bruce gave Charlie and Brad a little bit of a tough time in the post-game interview too. It just everyone was frustrated about the weather, and I know tomorrow I just landed up here and I'm like, I'm from California. I played Houston. I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Sorry,
so
man.
I'm watching to see, is that orange ball coming out, and then what's the reaction going to be like for the players?
Do you have a North Face jacket?
I do not have a North. I tried to bundle up literally every jacket I have possible, but if you see me in the stadium, I'm going to be freezing.
Yeah, luckily you're going to be in the press box where we're going to be. It'll be warm, but the walk to the car is real. Like, make sure you got a jacket for sure.
The other player that I didn't think had a great night the other night was Giacomo Vrioni. He got taken off in the 60th minute. Really didn't get anything going offensively for the Revs. And, the second you bring Bobby Wood on, I mean, automatically the team looked completely different, I thought, for the rest of that final half hour of that match. And you know what? I think Bobby's trying to prove a point here. I think you're playing with a guy that has a big chip on his shoulder this year, and I talked to him earlier this week, and it feels that way. You get the vibe that this is a guy that wants to prove something this year. So how much of it? So what do you think went wrong with Giacomo first, and I'll let you talk about Bobby.
Well, I think Vrioni, sometimes it takes players time to adjust. He had some injuries last year. I think year 2 is the year where you're expecting to see more of him, especially when you look at the pedigree that he has and the goal scoring rate he had in Austria. The question is I watched the preseason match and it seemed to be clicking. It seemed like he had a little bit more going for him. And then, of course, I mentioned the tough environment, but it just kind of seemed to maybe revert back. So I think sometimes as far as just like building your confidence is really important for a striker. I've played that position. And then also sometimes it helps just to be pushed. You see someone like Bobby Wood come on and you see him have a good performance. There's going to be a couple more guys. I think Josie should be kind of coming back into the picture a little bit. Gustavo Bo, I think, just recently returned. It might take a little bit for him to kind of get going. So in some ways, I think the best way to get a striker going is to kind of look behind you and say, okay, well, I've got some guys behind me that are pushing that. If I don't do the job, someone's going to be happy to do it.
You get those same vibes that I'm feeling about Bobby Wood right now. It's a guy that wants to prove himself and show that he can still be, one of the better strikers in this, not even in the league, but in the country.
I think he's had some trouble where he wasn't able to play a ton in Salt Lake, but I think he had about 3 goals in just over 900 minutes, which isn't a bad return rate for a team that maybe didn't get the best service. And so now you think and you say, all right, if you put him in a system, especially like the Revs where you get guys wide, I think, you look at Bai and you look at Jones, the way they get up and down the flank, then Carlos Hill in the middle, and there's just a lot of weapons around you. So if you are a number 9, you make good runs in the box. You had a couple good ones in this last one. You think you're going to get chances, and if you get that, you bet on yourself to get goals. So I could see definitely him beating his numbers last year. Whether he takes the full number 9 spot, I'm not sure. I still feel like Vrioni and Bo are going to be the two probably to lead it, but I know they're looking for someone else to emerge, whether it's Josie or Bobby Wood, to really kind of step forward and try and make it difficult and maybe claim it for themselves.
So let's round out the field. We talked about the offense in the midfield for the Revolution last week. I think the best part of the field was that defensive third. Absolutely. Petro was not even they had pretty much no chances on him at all.
Really tested.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Not tested at all. But the back four, the addition of Romney, Kessler stepping up and in, by Jones, that's a solid back four in New England, right?
Oh yeah, I think the whole back line, and I would add on to it the two in front with Polster, who does such a good job really communicating and protecting that back line. And then I think Buck as well came in and had some, for a 17-year-old, the way he reads the game kind of blew me away, honestly. Just the way he was able to kind of track some guys back into his own box, make some defensive recoveries. He had the ball into Kessler that went off the post, but he also wins the header to read the game to really start that final goal that ended up being the game winner. So I think that back six there in front of Petrovic is really, really strong. So that if you're looking at an experienced back line, and then you think of maybe adding Andrew Farrell to the picture, what he might bring, maybe Romney and Kessler and him could potentially play in a 3-back formation, just different options. But yeah, no questions that this back line is I think going to be one of the best.
Well, how important is it? Because I feel like in the past we love Polster on the show. We love Polster in New England. He's just a guy that you can count on every single week. We just always felt like whoever was playing next to him maybe didn't belong there, not necessarily not on the field, just at that position. Like we've had Tommy Mack in the past. There was some other players like Maciel played there.
Yeah, McCoon
playing there. But I feel with Buck, especially with how young he is and talented, how important is it to have a second guy there at that CDM position be able to then counterattack and bring that ball forward?
Yeah, I think you're dead on. He had a lot on his shoulders, especially when you think of the way New England sends those wing backs or outside backs forward. It sometimes then falls into, two center backs in the back and then Polster to drop back and either get out to the sideline and, stop a counterattack or take a yellow card, or there's just a lot for him to do. And so I think adding a second six or dual sixes there can really help. And even at times Polster was able to kind of drive forward himself. We haven't seen that a ton at times, but he can get forward and contribute some late arriving runs. I am interested to see what happens with the Latif Blessing as well. I know hasn't been quite fit yet, but he's a player that I've always really liked. I think can really, add some energy, some possession, and maybe something a little bit more dynamic to that midfield. But yeah, I think for week one, Buck was one that stood out to me as for 17 years old to step in to that environment. I mean, I thought he was great.
Right, so let's move to the broadcast for a second, because last week we talked with Lloyd Sam, who came on the show and pretty much apologized to the Revolution fans
that's a good point.
For being, calling Charlotte FC. We have a Houston Dynamo ex-player here now.
Right.
Is there anything you need to say to our fans?
To apologize for
any
to the people of New England?
grievances?
Anything you want to put out there?
No, but I would say it was just funny because I had somebody send me a message to say, okay, well, we've got a guy who played for Houston against the Revs, played for Chicago against the Revs. Like, what's the deal with this? And I always say the Revs were, I will be very honest, the Revs were like one of the teams that were I least enjoyed playing against. And I would
because
say
the stadium, isn't it?
No, I would say it was really because of the players. Like when I think of one of the names that pops out to me is the guys I least like to play against was Jay Heaps. He just was so difficult to play against. Every time I thought I could maybe beat him one-on-one down the line, he'd like jump in and get a tackle in before I even had a chance to make a move. If I thought he was going to jump in, he'd drop off. It was just impossible to play against. And, you go through the line of Taylor Twellman. I remember him scoring a bicycle kick in the playoffs when I was with Chicago.
Oh yeah, I was there at that game actually. That was incredible.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's all good. I had too good a look at that. So mostly kind of bad memories playing against the Revs. Even my one highlight I mentioned before was my first pro goal, but then Steve Ralston, who ended up coaching me in Houston, was kind of robbed me of that. So ton of respect for the Revs fans, and yeah, and you guys, man. It's awesome to be on the show. So I don't know if that's an apology or what, but
No, it's not a mea culpa. You're good.
We're okay.
Calen's good.
To be like, oh no, I don't want to play against you guys.
You brought up Jay Heaps. Do you think he gets another chance to coach in MLS?
I don't know. It's so difficult now. It's so competitive, especially as we've seen more international managers come to Major League Soccer. I never thought I would see the days of Patrick Vieira or Thierry Henry or now Wayne Rooney, Tata Martino, just all different types of profiles of managers that have come over. I think it's made maybe less available places for domestic American managers. That said, Pat Noonan, stand out. I feel like he's been one of the best. You see Jim Curtin, what he's been doing, Steve Cherundolo. So there, I will say I will still back the guys who know Major League Soccer, have played in it, and understand that. I think that's super valuable. But yeah, I could see Jay getting another opportunity, and yeah, I would say I definitely wouldn't want to play against him, and I could imagine with the way he gets his teams going. Yeah, he would give that same sort of competitive spirit.
You know, you mentioned the international manager thing. Do you think MLS is now a stepping stone, for guys? I mean, look, Frank Lampard came over here. Patrick Vieira came over here. Thierry Henry came over here. Wayne Rooney came over here. Kind of seems like all these guys in the EPL are looking at MLS and saying, hey, I want to coach in the Prem one day. Or I want to coach in La Liga one day. But you know what? America's my door into that pathway. It kind of feels like that's the direction we're going, right?
Yeah, I see it. We're just being more involved in the global soccer market or football market in general. Just because if you think about it, when I was playing in Major League Soccer, there were a couple guys like Clint Dempsey
it was a big deal when they made that move.
Yeah.
Like, when they were involved in the transfer windows, it was like, whoa, this is huge. But now it's a regular thing.
Yeah, super rare. It was like Jeff Cameron, but you had to be best 11. You had to be with the national team. You had to not just be with the national team. You had to be playing on the national team. And now we have players who, play a couple of games. They're playing much younger, mind you, and now getting sold for pretty sizable fees. So I think that's actually a sign of progress. I think it's going to be a little slower for American managers. If you think of Jesse Marsh, he got to go, but I think partly because of the visibility, and to take nothing away from his managerial sort of like tactics and philosophy. I think just being a part of that Red Bull global system helps. I think NYCFC, similar thing. But yeah, I think more and more managers are looking at this league and saying, you know what, this is a really good place to learn. It's got some unique challenges. I can work on my, if I just retired, especially, I can really work on how I want to be a manager, and then potentially, like the players are, try and move back to Europe at some point.
Well, we're talking about the managers, and you mentioned the players. As a player, and you've seen MLS evolve over time, it's got to be really cool for you to see this product where it is right now. You mentioned these younger players. DeJuan Jones is a player on the Revolution that's getting looks overseas. We've had players over the last few seasons, Matt Turner as well. Tajon. Adam Buxa goes back. So watching that evolution of this league, what's that like as a player who's played in it?
It's awesome. Yeah, I try not to go to look back too much, but I tend to think of like, oh, what would it have been like to have pressure to play young players, or just an openness to play young players. I think it's a really positive thing. The investment that goes with the academy. Could I have potentially skipped college and played in an environment that would have prepared me quicker? What kind of player would I be? And so just even the infrastructure, right? I come to play in New England, like the training ground here, the whole facilities are just top class. And you go across Major League Soccer now and you see that. So I think it is pretty cool. And in a way, for me, I feel lucky, instead of looking back to say, oh, I wish I had it this way. I wish I had it as good as these guys, or, oh, the money's much better now. It's more just like, man, I'm just so happy. That's what all of us who played in the league for a long time really wanted to see. I think fans feel the same way. And to still be a part of it from the broadcast side now is really cool. And yeah, I get to comment on it.
You get to hang around the area for a little while? You as soon as the game's done tomorrow, you out?
I texted Charlie Davies to be like, hey man, I've been on Zoom calls with you and streams with you for the past 3 years, and I see this dark mahogany office you have with some nice bottles of wine. I'm like, you better take me somewhere for a nice drink after the match. So TBD if Chuck's gonna hold his end of the bargain, but yeah, I'm gonna stay at least till Sunday and then head back to New York.
Are you a wine guy?
You know what? I'm not so much. I'm more of a low-key beer or maybe a cocktail if I'm feeling fancy. But you know, around Charlie, I'll give him a tough time. He's like, I always joke that he's more classy and refined than me. So I'll try and step my game up if I get to hang with Charlie.
So we talked about the on-the-field stuff. You mentioned, obviously, Apple, and we talked from the jump about you being a TV host. The Movement is the show on Apple that everybody should check out. One of the episodes that I really liked was the one about Las Vegas, because I feel like this was shot a little while ago, but all of this sports gambling stuff is so relevant now. We have it here in Rhode Island, just came to Massachusetts. So what was it like shooting that particular one?
Yeah, it was cool. I wouldn't recommend most people in other circumstances spend 4 or 5 days in Vegas. I'm trying to remember how many days we were there.
Yeah, 2 to 3 tops.
I did 3 nights, 4 days. I was dead after the second day.
No, the first day.
The first day I had I didn't make it to any of the pool. I made it to one pool party of the 3 days, 4 days I was there. It was tough.
That's not bad. Yeah, I went to I've been there a couple other times for MLS players' bachelor parties. But yeah, this was a little bit different. This was fun. I got to go check out Las Vegas Lights. I got to see kind of what was happening with the youth development scene. A lot of young players coming out of Vegas. The Leagues Cup final was there. I'm really excited for Leagues Cup this year with the competition between Liga MX in Mexico and MLS that all teams are going to be in. That's going to be a pretty unique dynamic as far as having a month off and seeing how we kind of measure up with them. And then, there's still conversation about Vegas in MLS. Could it potentially be the 30th team? So in some ways, that show, we weren't always planning it that way, but is just kind of surveying soccer culture in different places. You never know. Sometimes you hit one. And I feel like Vegas we've seen it successful in hockey. We've seen it now with the Raiders moving there. And it's becoming more of a destination for sports. So, and just events and entertainment. So, I don't know.
The atmosphere there was wild. They had like an Elvis mascot. They were
Elvis,
dropping money from the sky. It
Elvis
was like
playing
crazy.
goalie.
It was nuts.
I think it would be a mistake if MLS doesn't go to Vegas. Like Calen's saying, I think you see a lot of and there's a real fan base of sports fans out there. That you got the Golden Knights, you got the Raiders. So
but then it's just another major market that a big European player will avoid New England to go to Vegas. Now instead of just L.A., Miami, and New York, we got to dodge Vegas now.
New England or Vegas?
New England, obviously.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Who wouldn't? We got snow coming tonight. Who wouldn't want to deal with this?
Yeah, exactly. Calen Carr, he is the host of The Movement on Apple TV, available now. He will be calling the game later tonight between the New England Revolution and the Houston Dynamo, which is available on MLS Season Pass, found on Apple TV. No blackouts. You can catch all the games, and also check out the MLS 360 show, which I thought was very good for Week 1. That was a lot of fun watching that and watching Taylor scream into a
it's great
TV
content.
after Klaus scored that third goal, and then you get the game winner, or you have Taylor screaming at TV. So it was a lot of fun. It was good. It was good for Week 1. I'm excited for Week 2, 3, and
I look forward to it. And sorry, not to take too much more of your time, but just the user friendliness of the app.
Yes,
as somebody who's been a fan of the league literally since 1996, and to see how just how the conversation we've had today, how much it's grown on the field and just the size of the league, but now having these dedicated services and streaming platforms and these veterans that are talking about the game, it's and the extra content we get, it's absolutely incredible, and it's a beautiful thing, and we appreciate you being a part of it and giving us some time today.
No, awesome to be here, guys. Really exciting time to be a part of things with the league, and but yeah, I think also it should be said that all of the the podcasts and people, I listen to the podcast, your guys' podcast, to understand more of like what's really happening in the market, how do the fans feel, interviews and access to players too. So it's pretty cool to see kind of all this being lifted up at once, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Calen Carr, thank you so much, man. We'll have you on later in the season.
Cool, would love it.
Okay, so welcome back to New England Soccer Weekly. This is fun. This is new. This is A very nice job by Mike DeSilva.
Great job by
I
Mike
know
D.
we've got the
Thank you very
podcast.
much.
This whole thing that you're seeing,
Thank you
all
very
set
much.
up by my man right there.
It's very hard because like we have a podcast too, so like people might be listening to this as they might be running or doing house
Well,
errands.
here's what they should do: listen to it, and then go back to YouTube and watch it.
Yeah.
And then you
do both.
I'm gonna
subscribe to the YouTube.
Right.
Yes.
So please, if you're watching this or listening, subscribe to our YouTube. We're going to be doing more video content. We're going to be posting video podcasts every week. You got it. Personally, I think I would rather guide people to watch it because you got to see our reactions in real time. I mean, some of the things we react to what Tom says is real life. And there's going to be a time where Tom is wearing sunglasses. And
Well, that was my point, is that Tom not having sunglasses means this is a professional shoot.
They say make your workplace your home, right?
Who says that?
Oh, my God.
This is- are we-
Oh, no. Yeah, okay. See, this
Oh,
is-
wait.
this-
What,
take
put
your
your shoes
all
back
right.
on.
I'm
That,
getting comfortable.
oh, boy.
And now the
Good
cell phone
God.
broke.
We are flying off the rails
You know,
here.
there was something in our group text that happened this weekend that we can't actually bring up here, but this is reminding me a lot of that train wreck.
I do love you're sitting cross-legged there. It's nice.
Did you break your
Crisscross
phone?
applesauce.
You look very comfortable.
Yeah, it's kind of broken anyways.
Oh,
Yeah, Tom. You
nice.
probably dropped a barbell on that thing. But great interview.
I was gonna say.
Stop judging.
I was gonna say Tommy no glasses, Tommy no
came somewhat
kiwis,
presentable
Tommy
today
no
because I knew that we
jug
were
of
gonna be
water.
doing
Like
this.
we got a new man right here, and then he kicks his shoes off, and now I don't know what we're doing.
I don't know.
Well, again, I'm getting comfortable. But anyways, thanks again to Calen Carr for coming on. Really do appreciate him joining the podcast today. So, yeah, now you head into the home opener this weekend. You're 1-0 versus an 0-1 Houston Dynamo team. I think the momentum is good, despite the fact that I didn't think you had a great.
Oh, I got to get a note to self, get a momentum drop.
Despite the fact that I didn't think you had a great night offensively, I think the biggest takeaway is that this team felt composed in a very hostile atmosphere, like Charlotte, a very jacked up atmosphere. You know, obviously there was a lot of emotions going into the game, but you know the fact that you walk out with the win, yet you show that you're not. I think that showed that they're not the team of last year. This team last year does not win that game last week.
I think the atmosphere is a good point, though, because for all the things that we talked about, it was difficult, and the energy through the screen on Apple TV was wild to start that game down in Charlotte. As the game progressed, I was actually cool with a tie. Like, if they get a point and get out of here, it's not bad. But to your point, to get that win in that fashion, if you listen back to last week's show, one of the main things we talked about that was a problem last year was the ability to finish games, either with the win or with a tie. And in game one, you score an 89th minute goal, and you walk out of there with 3 points. Again, game one, but success.
No,
Good job.
definitely a big success. Like you said, it's the emotion of the game for many reasons going into it. The crowd being as big as it was good, and they looked like the hungrier team. And I think that's a big step forward. It's a good way to kick off the season. If they came out flat, you know, granted the first 20.
Both teams really for the first
Both
half.
teams
I
looked
think
very
we saw
flat
that
to
across the
start.
league, really.
You know, we understand that Vrioni's still going to get himself situated in the league. You know, Bruce.
Yeah, I wasn't that down on Vrioni. I think that he's
I think
coming
the
off an injury.
expectation is high.
But
Because
you could see the work ethics there. He just needs reps. He's got
Yeah,
it.
and
You did the same thing with Buxa,
Yeah,
both of you.
we
by
did
the
the-
way. And I'm not saying he's Adam Buxa, but you got to give this player time to get on the field. He hasn't been on the field yet.
No, it's true, and Bruce, you know, has already come to his defense in saying that he thinks that he needs more time in this league. Most players need more time in this league, so we'll give him more time in this league. I think that he'll come around.
Calen said it too.
I think there's just there's
And me.
this fear that we're going to go another season without a number 9. I think there's this
But
fear.
you have to give him time to prove you one way or another.
Absolutely.
You can't throw him away after one game.
But there's also that anxiety of lasting another long season without having a number 9, a player that can go out and score goals for you.
He's a designated player, and he's coming in. He's supposed to come in here and produce automatically. So yes, there is a little bit of an enhanced spotlight on him, fair or not. That's where Lloyd Sam last week says, "I'm happy that I was a senior player because I didn't have that pressure of being a designated player, expecting to need to produce every single week." Now, Mike said that Bruce came to his defense already. I have this little box right here, and then if you're watching the show, you might be able to see this said little box. And we're going to play a video off this little box where Bruce came to the defense of Vrioni.
Yeah, Vrioni, the play last week that started, you took him off around the 63rd minute. What would you like to see more of from him?
Oh, he has to be more involved in our attack. I think he needs to do a better job showing for the ball, right? Holding it up. Has to be a little bit better in the air. But, you know, he's still a young player, and especially in this league, it's going to take him some time.
You talked about that grace period in the past with Adam about European players taking time to get adjusted to the league.
Well, every player, not just European players.
Sure, but how far along do you think Vrione's in that process?
Well, he missed last year, basically, so
sure.
He's far behind.
But is he, to the point where you're seeing some progress, or?
Yeah, there's definitely progress, but it's going to take him some time. It takes most players coming into this league a year.
Because he knows that was not the performance of a designated player, especially with how he came out of the game. He came out in the 65th minute, which, by the way, Bruce didn't do that last year. Bruce would wait to sub until like the 85th minute,
Well, that was something we also talked about, that maybe they identified as an issue as well. Bring these guys on earlier if something isn't working entirely.
Right. And it wasn't working with Vrione that night. And granted, yes.
I don't think it was that bad.
But pull the plug earlier rather than later, because all delaying that does is affect the confidence of that player, because they're just out there doing worse. Sometimes people feel like, oh, you pulled them out too soon. Anything in the second half is not too soon. And it's got to be early on in the second half, because you're putting your team at risk of...
You don't give them a chance to start the second half, though, to maybe try to fix it?
Oh, no, I do. I don't pull them at halftime.
I think sometimes you have to make the adjustment.
I think the 60th minute is a good barometer, because you get 15 more minutes out of the locker room, and you can see if it's there or it's not.
But it's 15 minutes you wasted. I think we saw it in the World Cup too with a lot of teams. They just took too long to make adjustments, and I don't understand why people are so afraid to make changes at halftime. You have 45 minutes. That's a long time to see if this thing is working or not. I don't need to give you another 10 to 15.
Yeah, as a player, I would like another 15 minutes myself.
I think if they were down at half,
and you're on the road, right?
Then you maybe make the adjustment. The fact that you're tied at half, it's the first game of the year. Vrione didn't have the minutes to begin with last year, so that's where you maybe say you give him a little bit of a leash to kind of hey, try to figure it out. And I think maybe that leash gets a little bit longer this week because it's a home game this week, right? And you're playing against a West Coast team that I don't think is very good. The Dynamo finished at the bottom of the Western Conference last year, so.
Well, you heard Calen talk about it, and if you go back and watch the highlight 8-minute package on Apple, really front-heavy team. Herrera is obviously a really good player that they're going to have to watch for the full 90, but the defense definitely is something that this offense can take advantage of tomorrow night. We're filming on Friday. Houston definitely made a lot of mistakes in their first game. Can they be shored up in game 2? Sure, but that's definitely something that the New England Revolution can take advantage of, and can take advantage of early tonight.
Last point. Anything else?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think, you have to get ahead of this. Houston is not a team you necessarily fear. If you were able to go in a hostile environment last week in Charlotte, emotions running super high. First game at home, there's no excuses. You got to go out and win this game.
It seemed like their right side was weaker too, so whoever's on that left flank could have a day tonight.
All right, let's wrap up the show. Next, it is New England Soccer Weekly, 790 The Score. All right, the final couple minutes here of New England Soccer Weekly. Want to bang out some things before we say goodbye.
Bang them out.
Ready for tonight with the Houston Dynamo.
Home opener.
And the New England Revolution.
Stadium.
Christian Latanzia, the head coach of the Charlotte FC. I sound like Nick now. Of Charlotte FC.
And Lloyd.
And Lloyd.
Our friend Lloyd.
Said that the New England Revolution, or that Charlotte played against one of the best teams in MLS last week, that being the New England Revolution. And we know how Bruce feels about very, statements like these, especially on week 1. So you wanted to react to this. So here's what Bruce said. I love this box that you gave me. This is the second one, right?
Don't clip that, yes.
Okay.
I kind of have a feeling where I know this answer is going to go, but it just happened, so I figured I'd ask you. Christian Latanzio just came out to the Charlotte media and said that he thought his guys just played against one of the best teams in MLS. What's sort of your reaction to that, and do you send him a bottle of Barolo for the compliment?
Well, if he said that, 30 games from now, I would really take that as a compliment. It's nice of him to say that. I thought his team gave a great effort against us as well. I think we all need to keep things in perspective. It was game 1 of a long season, and we're trying to make progress each and every week.
Off of the chair, Tom.
What is wrong with you over there?
All right, well, it's fine. Anyways, thank you, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about Bruce, and you have seen him in person a few different times. His demeanor seems to be, I mean, he's joking with you there. He's joking on the Apple package about Bo showing up on payday. So are you seeing a different coach this year or what?
No, I think he's the same guy. I think he
Seems relaxed.
But here's the thing, like for 2 years, almost 3 years, all the interaction that we've really had with him was through Zoom. So it was very, benign and black and white, and you rarely got a good sound. I mean, we got a few good sound bites from during the Zoom press conferences, but I really do appreciate the fact that they're, going back to having him available in person because, that's who he is. That's that the last 2 clips that we've played on the show here is more of a relaxed kind of like that's who Bruce Arena is, and that's somebody that Frank Delapa would tell you that that's who he is for years. So I don't know if I necessarily see a new coach. Granted, too, he's 72 years old. High blood pressure at the age of 72 is not necessarily very.
That's
good.
not great. My man's got to chill out.
Exactly, and so maybe that's why he's a little bit more sedated. I will say, I did see Bruce Arena run the other day.
Oh,
that was something new.
Like to address somebody, or was he like?
No, he
working
was
out?
doing laps. Him, Kurt, Richie, Charlie, they're all doing laps after.
Everybody's
after
getting
practice.
cardio.
He's just getting fit.
Little cardio.
Hey, you know what? You have to honestly. If I'm
Leave your phone.
I know. If I make it to 70 years old,
Yeah.
I hope I'm able to run. I give Bruce a ton of credit for being able to.
Could he beat you in a foot race?
No, I'm pretty quick. I've
Come
got speed
on.
to me.
I don't know about that.
I'm faster than DeJuan Jones.
Did you hear him or no? I know sometimes you don't hear him fully. Did you hear what he just said?
Faster than DeJuan Jones.
Anyway, so did you guys enjoy seeing full stadiums this past weekend? Because that was the one thing that I like, just from a general standpoint, that I really enjoyed is that this feels like a different MLS, and you know what that is too, and that we do really talk about with Calen. There's a World Cup bump.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely seeing it.
Yeah. World Cup bump always makes a big difference for sure. They had the advantage that it was in the winter this time, so instead of kind of interrupting their season,
it stays in the sports cycles.
It rolls right into it, and I think that really worked out to the league's benefit. Regardless, there was a lot of excitement. I don't remember an opening day for MLS as exciting as we had last week. And, obviously here we know New England, hungry for the sport of soccer. We know that it's usually pretty popular and big.
It's going to be
here.
empty this weekend.
But just to see it league-wide, I mean, you never know. People, come on, you got to give the Revs fans a little more credit.
Well, I mean, the weather plays a big factor into it too, right? So it's like
it's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold. It's going to be raw, rainy. I mean, March and New England soccer does not go well together at all.
But back to your point about the crowds and about week 1, I mean, it couldn't have been better for MLS because you talk about the Revolution, 89th minute goal. You talk about Atlanta, extra time goals. I think both of them, actually. You talk about St. Louis winning the way that they did. Like, there were some dramatic finishes in week 1.
Great finishes.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, I believe the Atlanta-San Jose game probably the most exciting, and then DC-Toronto right there. 1-2. I mean, you got to be happy for Taylor Twellman, though, and St. Louis, that they go on the road. They get a come-from-behind victory. Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest come-from-behind victory because Atlanta sort of gave the game away. But at the end of the day, I think this could be the season all year. Maybe we were spoiled a little bit on week 1, but it feels like a different league. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels different.
Well, the DC game is definitely the biggest upset. And I recall on one of the last few episodes that the team Tom really pinpointed on having a great season was Toronto FC. Yeah. So, again, Toronto.
That's game 1.
Yeah, here's your mans. You see him on camera now.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
This is what happens. So now
you're on camera.
We got to get – now that we're on video –
I like how you've set this up, by the way. It's you two on that side.
Well, you're the host.
So anything that I say here
you're the lead
doesn't reflect back to
We're
you.
not even going to bring up something that you put during the game in our group text that I almost piled on. I don't want to talk about it because it was so far off. I don't know where you see these things sometimes, but that's why this is a long way of saying that's why we're setting it up like this.
I do like the fact that I gave you the loan, like, hey, you're the host, you're the lead, and you still
Here's your box.
You have to roast me for. I gave you a toy.
Yeah.
Like, I gave you a fun toy. Tom's like, was giddy
box.
over this thing. It is a really cool toy that I wanted to use, but I
can
gave it to you. I could have sat there.
Sure.
But I gave it to you.
Or me.
But it also
And
makes
you
sense.
hating-
Like, the set design works because you're behind the Hot 106 signs. I'm behind the WPRO sign. So it's not like, I mean.
Score in the
Tom,
middle.
Tom, You don't think I thought of that?
Of course he did. But this is another
True.
thing.
I'm sorry.
When you're watching this right now, you're talking about two people that are on camera daily.
Yeah.
We do these things. This man kicks off his shoes, dropping his phone, sitting like this. It's just it's
But
a
that's
different.
why you're here.
That's it.
That's why you're here, and not for that.
No.
Anyways, New England Soccer Weekly is out of here. Oh, yes?
Well, before you go, I did program one more button on there for you. The one all the way to the right, second down. It's a little surprise button.
Oh, it's a surprise.
Does it say surprise on it? It's supposed to.
No, it doesn't say anything.
All the way to the right, second one down.
Yes, I see it.
Go ahead and press the button.
Should I say goodbye first? Or should we?
No, I want your reaction to
Okay.
it. There it is. We had to get it in. We had to get it in. You see me over here?
Now it's
we
a
had to get
surprise.
in.
Okay.
Sunglasses, Tommy, on the first video episode. It wouldn't have made sense to not have it.
Subscribe to the YouTube.
Yes.
Goodbye, clowns.
Bruce.